All right, let's talk about the fitness stuff. Because every once in a while, I'll have a friend, they're like, hey Jags, I hear you do the lifting stuff. Can you give me some recommendations on where to start? So here's that video. I generally recommend most people get started with something super easy, super basic that we can adhere to. 30 to 45 minutes, 3 days per week is a good starting point if you are at the very beginning of your fitness journey. Now, if you've seen some of my other content, you'll see that I do the powerlifting thing with the squat rack and the weights. But when I first got started, it was literally something I was doing in an apartment gym complex or the equivalent of a hotel gym with some basic dumbbells. So that being said, that's what this program is. 3 days a week, full body, 4 exercises, and each one you only need a pair of dumbbells. I do recommend a gym membership though if you are just getting started, because it'll give you more options as far as weight, so you can figure out, okay, what can I actually lift, so then you know what to buy later on. That being said, let's talk about some of the equipment that you'll need. You'll need a pair of dumbbells. For men, I recommend 20 to 40 pounds to get started, and for women, 15, 20 pounds, and obviously if you're a very strong lady, get more weight, hell yeah. But that's generally a good starting point for weight. A pair of dumbbells, 20 to 40 pounds. I also do recommend these squat wedges. I'll leave a link in the description down below, and we'll get to these in a second. And then you also need some sort of bench. So you can find these on the Facebook Marketplace. So many people sell them, and this is a very nice Rogue one that I've had for many, many years. But you could use your couch. You could use the armrest of a big armchair or your couch. You could put some chairs together. You could use an Apple box. So all that is to say, you don't need a whole lot of equipment. When you're finding weight, use Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. Look for weight that's about $1 per pound. You could also buy it new at Target or something. So you do need some equipment to get started. But the reason why is the problem with body weight exercises is that a lot of people, especially getting started, you can't do a full pull-up or do a push-up, and that's okay. That is, we all have to start somewhere. But the goal behind exercise is to have really good quality training, and to get good quality training, we need to be able to train through a full range of motion safely and consistently. So if we can only do one pull-up, that's not enough reps in a set to actually help build strength over time. So that being said, I do recommend a gym membership if you're just getting started, so you could start figuring out how much weight you can actually lift. Okay, what's the program? 3 days per week, full body. It's 4 exercises. It should take you no more than 45 minutes. 30 to 45 minutes should be a nice sweet spot. 1 to 2 minutes rest in between each set. And I do recommend 5,000 to 8,000 steps per day, just for heart health related things. Okay, let's cover some basic terms really quick. A repetition is a single instance of an exercise. So it's like if you're doing a curl, for example, a single repetition would be, that's 1 rep. All right, now a set is a sequence of reps, like 1, 2, 3, 8 to 15 reps is a good set. Then after that, we have load, which is how much weight we're lifting or the intensity. There's lots of fitness terms for it. All that being said, that's the terminology. Let's cover some of the exercises now. So the first exercise is a goblet squat. A goblet squat is basically kind of like the way it's described. Whenever you think of like a goblet at like Ren Fair or something, you hold a big stein here and you drink the thing. But instead of celebrating a big battle with some mead, we're holding a dumbbell under our chin, and then we do a squat. Now, for a lot of people who are sedentary, including me, getting into a very deep squat position can be challenging. So let me just demonstrate really quick. Getting into a good squat position is typically having our hip crease, where when we bend down, the hip crease goes below the top of the kneecap right here. But if you notice, for me, my ankles come up. If you see any of my powerlifting footage, you'll see that I wear special shoes. Those are called squat shoes. They have an elevated heel. I'm not an advocate of some personal trainers who are like, you shouldn't squat until you can have this kind of range of motion. Sign up for my program and buy my course so then you can get all the mobility so you can finally graduate to a squat. That's ridiculous. So that being said, for a goblet squat, especially if you don't have 3 hours per day to dedicate to dedicated mobility training, which is not a good way to start a fitness program because it's too overwhelming, we're gonna start with first figuring out our range of motion that we are capable of doing. To do a goblet squat, you're gonna find a stance in which you would jump as high as possible. So if I were to try and touch the ceiling here and just jump, that's how far apart your feet should be. So it should be a pretty neutral stance. Some people, when they do a barbell squat, for example, they'll be out super far, and that's where a lot of people will begin because they think they need to be out this far. And it can be an effective way to train, but for the goblet squat, I recommend a really strong, tight stance as if you were to jump. So, for a goblet squat here, let's just use this 20-pound dumbbell for now. We're gonna hold it just below our chin, and we're gonna come down. And fortunately, because the dumbbell it's putting our center of gravity forward, you should not fall forward, and if you do start to fall back, just push it a little bit more forward. You wanna find a nice sweet spot. You wanna keep your heels flat on the ground. If I were to try and keep my torso upright though, we can see that my heels come up, which is why we have those squat wedges right here. So these squat wedges help me and help a lot of people get started with learning to squat because it makes it easier to balance. It makes it easier to really focus on the main muscle we're trying to exercise in the squat, which is our quads. So when we step on the wedges just far apart, I can now keep my torso more upright, but that's not the goal. The goal is to focus all of the work on our quads, the front of our legs. So from here, regardless of my torso being more upright or not, I can feel it more in my quads here, and I guarantee you will feel this more. As far as depth, like I said, we want to get our hip crease below the top of our knee. That's a powerlifting term, but long story short, we want to make sure we're training with a full range of motion. So we do not want to quarter squat. Here we want to get nice and low. For each rep, we want to pause at the bottom for a split second, like half second, maybe a second, come back up, and then come down. Now the reason why I train with the squat wedges is I can use a full range of motion for all of my exercises. If I'm doing a goblet squat, sometimes I will do it with a barbell. That being said, let's do a set really quick to demonstrate this. So I will use the 40-pound dumbbell to start, and we're gonna do a set by putting the dumbbell just below our chin, trying to not crush my microphone as well. Step on the platform here, brace our core nice and tight, and then squat down, pause, come up, and then go straight into the next rep. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now before I finish this last set, I want you to notice something. At the very top, I'm not locking my knees. Instead, I'm going immediately into the next rep, like so. And I'm really controlling the movement. So when it comes to the goblet squat, what we really want to do is make sure we're in control of each rep. So on the downward motion, we're going to not dive bomb it and just sit down. We're going to control down, holding that dumbbell, explode up. Don't lock our knees out at the very top. We want to make sure that we maintain tension on our quads, and then we come back down and up. So to an extent, the goblet squat is the most complex exercise of this little program because it's also the hardest. There's a lot of things we need to do, but a lot of people don't know how to squat correctly, and it's no fault of their own. Modern lifestyle forces us to be sedentary a lot of the time. We don't really train our legs all that much because we're doing stuff with our hands, like on the computer. So, out of all the exercises, I recommend focusing on this one the most because you're gonna get in my opinion, you're gonna get the most stimulus out of it because it is honestly the hardest. I'm even a little out of breath after doing that one set. So, that is to say, that's the goblet squat. Full range of motion, 2 to 3 sets. If you're more advanced, do the 3 sets. If you're just getting started, let's start with 2. 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 15 reps with some amount of weight. The last rep shouldn't be like I'm dying and I couldn't do anymore, but it should be hard. So that's how hard we should train. So that's the goblet squat. Let's go ahead and put this stuff away. And now we have the dumbbell Romanian deadlift. Now the dumbbell Romanian deadlift, it's one of my favorite exercises because I'm generally pretty lower body dominant anyways. I recommend a broomstick. Now the broomstick is a good cueing mechanism for the deadlift because the deadlift is a hip hinge. A lot of people are afraid of the deadlift because they think it's going to hurt their low back. And if you train a deadlift or any exercise incorrectly, you might injure yourself. But a lot of people don't know how to hip hinge. So we start with the broomstick because we hold it out and we want to put it behind our head like we're sheathing a sword or something like that. Then with our opposite hand, we want to go ahead and grab the other side. Now from here, what we do is we're going to keep our feet in that same strong stance as if we were to jump super high, and we're just going to push our hips back, and you're going to notice that my shins are perpendicular to the floor. The reason why we do this broomstick exercise just starting out is most people don't know how to bend down. As in, there's no wrong way to bend down, but for a deadlift, a lot of the time they'll roll their back and arch their back. We don't want that. For the deadlift, the Romanian deadlift in particular, we want to keep a nice neutral spine, and using this broomstick is helping us find that position. So we can have a slight bend in our knees, but we want to make sure that we're hinging at the hips, not cat backing our exercises. So let's go ahead and grab some dumbbells now. I will grab my 40 pounds right here. Now you could use 20s, you could use even 70s and 80s if you're really that strong. You're gonna start in that same neutral stance. You're going to have the dumbbells at your side. Remember, keeping our shins perpendicular to the floor, but we wanna make sure we have a slight bend in our knees. We push our hips back and bring the dumbbells just down about halfway down our shins. Pause at the bottom for a split second and come back up. And then we're gonna do the same thing. Come back down. Just like so. Now that's the front angle. Let's do a couple more reps from the side angle. So from here, we're gonna bend down. Our dumbbells are halfway down our shins. Come back up. I'm really trying to flex my back. I'm pulling my shoulder blades not back, I'm pulling them down, trying to put them into my back pocket. So not like this, kinda, but more down and tight. And as I come down, I'm really feeling a tight stretch in the back of my legs. The Romanian deadlift is very much a glute and hamstring exercise with some low back. Obviously you need to keep your core tight, your low back tight so you don't round. But overall, the Romanian deadlift should be targeting all of this musculature. So those are the 2 hardest exercises of this, which is why we start with them first. Then we move on to the press or the row. Doesn't matter which one next. I always do the row just because I always prefer to do the hardest to easiest. So I'm gonna grab my bench. You don't need a bench. You don't need to buy something like this. I know these can be expensive. You can use your couch. You can even do a benchless row. Let's go ahead and grab a dumbbell really quick. Now with this, we're gonna let the dumbbell, go on the floor for a moment, and we're gonna set up. We're gonna step up to whatever our platform is, couch, bench. You could even rest your chest on something like a dining table, which is something I did during COVID. You're gonna have a split stance, about 30, 45 degrees away here. You're gonna reach down, pick up the dumbbell, and it should pull your shoulder blade and your lat down and feel very heavy in your hands. You're gonna pull your glutes out, so you have a nice neutral spine. You're gonna grip the dumbbell tightly. You're gonna row upwards and then come back down and let it really pull your musculature down so you can get a full range of motion and a really nice stretch. Now, one big mistake that a lot of people make starting out with the dumbbell row is that when they pick it up, they're gonna come up way too high. They're like really like shrugging it up. Sort of, and when I say high, not like high isn't like you want it to have a full range of motion this way, but when they're pulling more towards their chin, when in reality you should be pulling slightly more towards your hips. So you don't want to like throw it back, but you want to keep your arm to a 90-degree angle at the top. So you want to avoid this, because this is more like upper back trap, which is not a bad thing, but for the dumbbell row, we want to really focus on the big musculature in our back, which is our lats. Let it sink all the way down, really get a nice stretch. Come back up. And that's 3 sets of 8 to 15 reps. And I forgot to mention that for the last exercise, but that's the same thing. Everything here is pretty much 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 15 reps. You'll do the other side. Again, 8 to 15 reps. Have a slight pause at the bottom, so you're not really just like bounce. You want to avoid bouncing into it, but pull up and control the weight. That is the name of the game and the motto of good weight training. Now, let's get rid of the bench for a second, because I know some of you don't have a bench. So we're going to take a page out of the book from Mr. John Meadows and do something kind of like a meadow row. A meadow row is basically a benchless dumbbell row. He would use a barbell, but for this, we're gonna have a split stance. We're gonna have our opposite non-working hand on our knee, get our torso more parallel to the floor. Then we're gonna pull up, and down, pull up, and down. And really let the dumbbell pull our lat down, and then pull it back up, just like so. So that's the row. Again, if you do have time to do or do have resources to go to a gym, I would even consider subbing this out for a lat pull down, because I'll be honest, using a unilateral movement where you do one side at a time, it's kind of boring. You're doing the same amount of work twice. So I'm all about efficiency, especially for artists when we're trying to make work. I don't want to spend 3 hours in the gym, but you can do a dumbbell row and keep it at like a 45-minute workout anyways. Okay, last exercise, the dumbbell press. Let's go ahead and grab that bench. This is the one where we do need a bench. We do very much need a bench. We can do a push-up, and if you can do a push-up, awesome. But my issue with push-ups is, we'll get to that in a second. But first, let's go over the dumbbell press. I will set up my dumbbells. Now, when we press, we need to remember that we want to avoid a super wide flare out. We want to keep our elbow, this angle right here, we're going to keep that at a 45-degree angle. So nice and tight. So when we push, we're doing something called a horizontal push, as in it's horizontal to our body. This would be a vertical push. This is a horizontal push. So we're doing a horizontal push. And when we grab the dumbbells, we're going to set them on our knees like so. And the reason why we do this is now it's easy for us to get into the position. So we're going to kick our knees up just to push the dumbbells into our desired spot. Rest our feet flat on the ground. And we want to keep our head nice and flat as well, nice and tight, keeping that 45-degree angle from our elbow to our torso. We're going to keep the dumbbells just at or just below our nipple line or our sternum. We're going to press up and then back down. Pause at the bottom slightly, press up and back down, press up and back down. This one should be easiest, but it also can be challenging because we need dumbbells and a bench. So let's talk about push-ups. So I'm not a huge fan of push-ups because they do restrict our range of motion, but if that's all you have, like, I'd rather focus on being imperfect and doing something rather than, oh, I can't do the right exercise, therefore I'm not gonna do it at all. No, that's the wrong way to think about it. So, push-ups. You're going to have your shoulders or your hands at about shoulder width, maybe just slightly further. When we come down, really, like, we don't wanna, this is not a push-up. We wanna have a full range of motion. Our chin is just barely touching the ground. Back up. Push up, like so. Now, the reason why I'm not a huge fan of the push-up is because there is a physical range of motion limitation, which is why I recommend these squat wedges, specifically these, because they can also turn into little blocks. And then we can do something called a deficit push-up. We're basically increasing the range of motion by just a couple inches. Not much, but you'd be surprised what this does. So we're gonna have the same push-up position, put our palms on the platform, and just the extra couple inches can really help. And it can help make the push-up a more effective exercise because we're really leaning into that range of motion, getting a full stretch of each rep for the push-up or the chest press. But the big takeaways with these 4 exercises is it's about training quality. We want to make sure that we do every exercise in a full range of motion. So if we go back to the goblet squat really quick, our full range of motion should very much be at the bottom, nice pause, come back up, and maintain tension on the quads. Oh, almost lost my balance there for a second. Maintain tension on the quads the entire movement, like so. And the reason why we do that is it allows us to really stimulate the muscle, and it's across every single movement that we're doing. So just to quickly recap, we are doing a goblet squat, a dumbbell Romanian deadlift, and a dumbbell row, and a dumbbell bench press. So all that being said, it's 4 exercises. To recap the program, 3 days per week, full body, should take no more than 30 to 45 minutes. 2 minutes max rest between each set. And if you don't want to buy a bench, dumbbells, the squat wedges, or something like that, you can find alternatives if you're a little creative at home. You could find a plate. You could literally put your heels on a plate. I would grab the bigger plate, but just because the 10-pound was easier to grab, we could just, from here, get a similar effect without, this 10-pound was, find a textbook. You could do that. Full range of motion, we need to do, you can be creative with the exercise or the apparatuses, the accessories that you use. And if this is maybe too simple for you, or this is just enough, go give it a shot. Let me know if you have questions. I'm always happy to help around the fitness thing beyond the motion graphics related tutorials and stuff. That is everything. That is basically the workout program that I share with all of my friends who ask me, hey Jags, can you give me a little lifting program? So that is 3 days per week, full body, dumbbell squat, dumbbell row, or Romanian deadlift, dumbbell row, dumbbell flat press, right on an index card, 2 to 3 sets, 8 to 15 reps per set. Pick a weight that is challenging to you, and not so much where you're dying at the end of each set, but it should be challenging. That is to say, that's everything. Write it on an index card, or maybe I'll make something in the future. But if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comment section down below. If you have questions, comments, concerns, whatever else, comment section is down for that as well. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will leave you with the final tip, and that is eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. You make some. Goodbye, my friends. Bye, 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 bye. Come here, baby. Bye. Bye.